28 years later can bring back two cut ideas for the original movie's Infected, but only one would work, with 28 years later finally resurrecting Danny Boyle's apocalyptic vision. The long-dormant franchise has a chance to dig deep into the vault and revive some forgotten ideas. Among the most tantalizing are two concepts originally developed for 28 days later, but ultimately cut. One involving the infected regaining a form of consciousness, and another portraying animal-to-human rage transmission on a much wider, terrifying scale. Both concepts offer unique thematic resonance and horror potential, but only one fits the story 28 years later is poised to tell. The infected regaining consciousness, a chilling but conflicted concept. One of the more haunting ideas that was removed from 28 days later involved the infected regaining some degree of awareness. In early drafts and concept discussions, Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland toyed with the notion that the infected might still retain flashes of memory or self-recognition, rendering them tragic figures, trapped in their own bodies, helpless to control the mindless violence they inflict. Imagine a man realizing he's slaughtered his family, but unable to stop his own hands. It's Shakespearean horror. This idea touches on philosophical horror, blurring the line between monster and man, and making viewers question what's worse: losing your mind, or knowing you've lost it, and being unable to stop the carnage. It also adds a moral weight to killing the infected. Are they victims or threats? Do they deserve mercy or extermination? But the problem with this concept, particularly in a sequel set 28 years after the outbreak, is that it changes the nature of the infected too dramatically. Over 2 decades later, society would likely be facing either evolved rage carriers or completely new strains of infection. Having conscious infected would essentially change 28 years later into a hybrid of zombie drama and psychological thriller. That isn't necessarily bad, but it's a major tonal departure from the fast, raw terror that defined the original. Moreover, the infected retaining consciousness could slow down the pace of the story and muddle the immediacy of the threat. Part of what made the rage virus so terrifying was its brutal simplicity. A drop of blood, 10 seconds, and you're a feral killer. Introducing nuance and internal conflict to these monsters may humanize them, but it might also strip away the primal fear they once inspired. Animal rage transmission on a larger scale, the idea that could work now. A second idea, one with enormous potential for 28 years later, involves a concept hinted at in the opening of the original film: the transmission of the rage virus through animals. While 28 days later started with infected chimps, and 28 weeks later showcased birds spreading the virus via contaminated blood, the original film had a scrap subplot involving dogs, cats, and even cattle becoming infected. These infected animals weren't just carriers, they were hunters. This concept was shelved in part because of budget constraints and the challenges of filming realistic infected animals, but technology has advanced significantly in the decades since. With today's visual effects and animatronics, terrifying infected animals could be rendered with chilling realism. More importantly, this idea makes narrative sense in the context of a world 28 years into a viral apocalypse. Human survivors may have isolated themselves in remote zones or fortified enclaves, believing the worst has passed. But nature doesn't stay put. The rage virus lingering in wild animal populations could act like a time bomb. A single infected wolf pack, or a group of birds migrating across contaminated zones, could cause outbreaks in new areas long believed to be safe. This would create a fresh kind of dread, an invisible threat carried not by human mistake, but by the ecosystem itself. Thematically, it also deepens the franchise's core message: the breakdown of control.